That's why I assumed you have like professionals working on this because the product looks great. But like it's actually really impressive.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, you're looking at the professional right here.
Well, story of our lives, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, welcome everybody to this episode of the Small Talk Window podcast, where the host and guest have a small window of time to dispense with the small talk as quickly as possible and settle into a meaningful conversation around the world of work. And today, my guest is Alex Furman, who is co-founder, not Cal-founder, co-founder, and CEO of Performica. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, Brent, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, and even nearer and dearer to your heart, I think, to be honest, and with some of the conversations we've had in the green room. Maybe you could just share with our before we dive into it, share with our audience a little bit about you. What sort of animates you? What gets you out of bed every day when it comes to the world of work, and go there on your mission with Performica, which is a very interesting company.
Thank you. So the short of it is, I have a passion for all things organizational that I discovered kind of late in my life and late in my career. My background is in software engineering, and I spent many years writing software and then leading teams that are writing software. And then it so happened that I co-founded a company that did really well. And just as we were taking it public and starting our multi-year journey of exponential growth, we doubled every year by any meaningful metric, like including headcount, for many years in a row. To my amazement, I got my first job in HR as our chief people officer because I realized that, well, first I realized that organizational problems were going to kill us if we didn't do anything about them, because all hell was breaking loose. We were completely unprepared for the growth that happened. But then over time, I started thinking of organizational solutions as really one of our biggest opportunities to fulfill the mission of a company and to do well by our employees and to do well by our patients and customers and to do well by our investors. And I stayed as Invitae's chief people officer for many years, and over time started developing my own tools and really found that there's a tremendous amount of impact all around. Like when we get these things right, it creates these wins for the business, for the employee, for every kind of employee, right? And at the end of the day, for the customer, or in our case, a patient.
That's quite the story, and you landed around the edges of what we're talking about today, and it's why I'm so excited about this conversation. We're still kind of measuring the effectiveness of HR wrong, right? In the 21st century, I mean, we're almost a quarter of a century into it, yeah. And I mean, we're measuring the performance of people wrong, right? Too.
Yeah, sorry. Well, we're getting, like the editorial we're getting a lot of things wrong, right? You can look year after year, you can look at the SHRM surveys, and just everybody hates a performance process. Employees, like our actual teammates hate it, our managers hate it. But what's really crazy is like 9 out of 10 heads of HR hate it. So there's clearly something that is not going right there. But then the way we talk about it, like, it seems to me like we've been under a lot of pressure to put an ROI on the things that we're doing, which, by the way, is a great idea. Like there should be, like we're businesses, we work for businesses. We should absolutely be thinking in terms of ROI. But in the absence of getting that right, like frankly, what I've been seeing is a whole lot of hand waving that is not serving anybody.
Yeah, I think you got it right there. We should be. There's a fixation on measuring ROI. It's not a bad fixation because we should be measuring ROI. But I think what you were kind of saying, and that I'll just kind of, underscore here, is that I think that we're actually, it seems to me that we're measuring ROI wrong, or we're not getting all of it. We're only measuring a piece of it, and it's missing HR, and that's really gets to the nut of things today. We're missing a big piece of the picture when it comes to the valuation of businesses ultimately, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and with, like, on the HR side, at least, like, I mean, I certainly won't be calling anybody out by name, but I see these, like, campaign after campaign where it's like, oh, put in the system, and putting in the system will make your workforce 22.4% more engaged, and more engaged workforces are then going to be like 17.54% more innovative, and that translates into $1 bazillion. And no one, I mean, like, I roll my eyes, and frankly everybody else rolls their eyes, and that's one side of it. And then on the other side of it, like, if you ever look at any financial statement for any organization, our people are the most expensive thing we have, right? Take payroll, add to it, like, office expenses, equipment, travel, and entertainment, and everything that scales linearly with people, and you're easily looking at like anywhere between half to 80% of your spend, depending on the profile of the company. And that shows up in the liability section, by the way, and we don't put a value on the most valuable assets that the organization has, which is the team, right? So we exquisitely track laptops and square footage and whatever else, but again, the single biggest asset that any organization has, and we all know that our people are our single biggest asset. We don't track potential there. We don't project it into the future. It's a massive mess.
So you brought up a really interesting thing right there, right? That people are our biggest asset as an organization, and yet in the conventional, like the accounting spreadsheet, they fall under they fall under the category, of a liability. And I was thinking, as you were saying that, I'm thinking, why is that? Well, okay, because it's an amount of money every payroll period that we give them, and that's money that technically goes out, maybe, right, of the organization. Yeah. But should it be seen as money that's going into the organization? Because that to me seems like a technicality. Like, how do we change this so that the people in the accounting spreadsheet are in the asset column? Like, what do we do? Does that matter? Is there something else we can do so that we start capturing their value in a more accurate way?
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, series premiere tonight on NBC.
To show the future potential of the business?
Well, so I think kind of yes and yes. On one side, I think in the accounting models, like, yes, absolutely, technically payroll is a liability. It should be a liability. That makes a lot of sense according to the accounting rules and best practice. Like, in that sense, like, I'm not, like, the point here isn't to change accounting. Like, in an accounting-centric view of the world, I think it makes perfect sense. I just think that we as business leaders and business owners or shareholders or analysts, we often take an accounting-centric view of the world. Like, again, like looking at companies as a collection of verticals, really over-focusing on org charts and departments, which don't represent how work gets done, by the way, like, at all. And when we look at organizations that way, we get, I mean, again, it's like very, very useful for certain applications, but not very useful at planning work, managing people, predicting future work. And generally speaking, like when you look at valuing companies, on one hand, you have your financial statements, but on the other hand, you have like the financial model that is going to forecast the business going forward. And I think that really, like that latter part is really where a like more bespoke and more accurate view of, again, our greatest asset belongs, because our people, I mean, that translates directly to like featureship and revenue growth and all of these other wonderful things, like the organization's like ability to adapt to change, organizational agility, all of these things that are absolutely critical to like future success, that we can absolutely get at, again, as long as we kind of move away from worshiping the org chart and moving away from worshiping the org chart. Like that takes having the right tools that many of the organizations don't have. But I mean, this is where I get to toot my own horn a little bit, but that we're building. So our customers have them.
So you brought up something else really interesting here, and just to put a fine point on it, or an exclamation point, however you want to, a question mark, I don't know. But in any event, you talked about future value and the valuation, like the valuation of the potential value of a business, right? Right, measuring the potential value of a business, and that's that's something that investors take very seriously. They look at these documents to determine how much they're going to invest in a company and all of that. So a couple things here. And I am not an accountant, and neither am I a private equity, investor. Maybe one day, who knows? But in any event, so there seems to be a disconnect between those financial statements and like, how do we reconcile? One question is, how do we reconcile these in the next 30 seconds? Just kidding. How do we reconcile these financial statements with these future potential valuations that PE firms and investors and others look at? And what was B? Well, B was the other piece of it was, people. There's two sides of the coin with our people. One is sort of the money that goes out to them, that we pay them, because if we didn't, they wouldn't work for us, and 9 times out of 10, right? That's the outgo. That's the liability. And that's very measurable. That's finite. We know exactly what that number is every time there's a financial statement. And yet there's a future value of a person. And we know instinctively, we know that there's a fair assumption that there will be a future value that's greater for the organization with any employee except poor performing employees, right? And poorly performing employees. But that's not we don't know that number, so that it can't go into the financial statement. And so there's a like a conundrum here. How do you reconcile that conundrum?
Well, so I think there's two and they're separate. And the first part, believe it or not, is actually, like, at least conceptually not that hard. Okay. Because again, we have the way like investors, and not just private equity, like Wall Street, VCs, it doesn't matter. The way investors look at businesses is, on one hand, we have like the current financials. So like let's boil it down to revenue. It's a little more complicated than that, but we have a business that brings in this much revenue and maybe this much profit. And then on the other side, though, like that's not what the business is worth. The business is worth some multiple of that revenue. And typically, like, professional services organizations are traded at some multiple of that revenue. Like fast-growing technology companies are traded at like a much bigger multiple of that revenue. And into that multiple goes in like the future assumptions about future growth, assumptions about future ability to like execute, ship product, increase revenue, increase sales, survive, right? Like, et cetera, et cetera. And we already do this. And with better tools, like as soon as we can like better map out and understand like both the current situation and the potential of our employees, of our workforce, like the value creation networks that happen within the organizations that like result in this value, we can just get those multiples better. So like that mechanism already exists.
Well, okay, so actually, this is the glimmer of hope here. It's maybe more than a glimmer. We talk about, what are some of those data points that are emerging that we're able to measure today that maybe we couldn't in the past, or we didn't have a good enough mechanism to facilitate easy enough measurement of that. And these data points about our people are going to be much more useful and helpful in predicting the future value that they're going to contribute to the organization.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that I'm excited about. So I think for example, we're learning a lot right now, and in general, I think there's a lot of progress on like the modern psychometric, if you will, side of the world. I know less about I'm excited I'm learning about these things. I think there's really interesting work being done on the skill side in general, and I think like sooner or later we will actually get there, though that part is really, really hard. And then, of course, there's my favorite part of this equation where I have spent years working with this. And this is, again, like understanding like on-the-ground value creation, like being able to map out like the map of expertise in an organization, the map of mentorship in the organization, like how decision-making happens and every single like critical escalation point within the organization. And if you do that, and start looking at like how value gets created on the ground for real, you can start tying these things like very, very directly. You can start tying these things to like featureship, revenue growth, operational efficiencies. And you can watch like whatever interventions you make, you can watch those interventions over a course of like weeks and months, not years, directly translate into these like very, very operational businessy metrics to get to, again, like an actual ROI that can be tracked and measured and empirically demonstrated. And this is where Performica lives, and this is where we thrive, and this is the problem space I spent years in.
Well, it is really exciting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.